It is a condition that affects 1 in 8 couples in the United States, and we're talking about infertility.
This week, the National Infertility Association launched a social media campaign calling for others to share their stories and bring awareness to this. Joining us to talk about it is Dr. James Nodler, a reproductive endocrinologist and fertility specialist with CCRM Fertility Houston. Dr. Nodler, thanks for taking some time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Our first question here, how big is the issue of infertility? Can you share some stats on how many individuals or families are impacted by this?
Yeah, definitely I can. So it's a very common issue. So we, as you mentioned a second ago, 1 in 8 couples are affected by infertility. And I think that number is actually an underestimate. We think that because couples are waiting kind of longer and longer to have children. And what we always tell people is that biology hasn't changed. So if you look back at our grandparents who were having kids in their early 20s, that's, really changed over the years as age of marriage and age of first child has increased into the mid 30s, sometimes early 40s.
And you bring up an important word, doctor, couples, and it sort of addresses maybe this misnomer that infertility only impacts women.
That's a really good question that you had for me there, because there are a lot of other folks that we help. So, first of all, there's single women. So we do a lot of egg freezing in our practice. There's women who want to be single mothers by choice. We do also have single men, same-sex couples, and even in heterosexual couples, we have men that have fertility issues. So men are at least a third of the problem with infertility. And we do see that all the time where, a woman has gone to her gynecologist for years and maybe had testing on herself, but her husband has never had a semen analysis. So that's definitely something we would do as part of the initial workup.
And we hear the number 35 for women all the time. I heard it forever. I mean, I had my first baby at 37, so Lord knows I was nervous. But it's not just women 35 and older. Women of all ages can be impacted by infertility issues.
That's correct. So, obviously, the older a woman gets, the more difficult things get, because women are born with all the eggs they ever have in their life. So quantity goes down, quality goes down with time, which is a major issue. But yes, I have patients in their early 20s. Some women have endometriosis, which is a severe inflammatory condition that affects egg quality. Some women have scarred or blocked fallopian tubes, and even younger women can have a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, where they don't ovulate or release eggs regularly, and that makes it really difficult to become pregnant.
And why is National Infertility Awareness Week so important, doctor? And how can we continue this conversation just beyond this week?
Yeah, thank you. That is a very important question as well. So there's always been a big stigma around infertility. So for years and years, couples wouldn't talk about trouble getting pregnant. Everyone knows that a lot of women don't talk about miscarriages, and people are surprised to hear how common miscarriages are. I think that a lot of that stigma has reduced over the years. And for all of my patients, I always find that the ones who do the best as they go through fertility treatment are the ones that we call load the boat, right? So they get friends and family members involved with their treatment. Just a spouse, a lot of times I think is not enough, because that person's struggling through what you're struggling with as well, right? And so whether that's a friend or a family member, sometimes a clergy member, those can all be great. A lot of women turn towards social media, which, like I said, can be a little bit tricky because you can see conflicting things there. But the whole point is to reduce the stigma and allow people to see that it's a big problem and you're not alone.
Yeah, it's great to have folks you can lean on outside your partner, because that person's also dealing with the stress of what's going on and
exactly.
nerves and everything that it all entails.
I imagine that, the stress, I guess, just in every aspect of life, you just want to get rid of it as much, anything that can help.
Yeah.
You're trying to get pregnant, the last thing you need is any amount of stress. All that support's got to be great.
Exactly.
Dr. James Nodler with CCRM Fertility Houston, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate the insight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.